right?
I love that.
It's all a process.
That's very Pollock, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of your murals, "What the F is a Pokeball?" cracked me up.
That was a
because
fun
I'm
one.
like, this dude is funny as well as inspirational. So tell us about how that piece came to be. I just want to hear that story.
That was a really fun story. That was a project in New Jersey. These two clients reached out to them. They're friends now, and they're awesome. They're opening up a poke restaurant. That mural was probably 4 years old.
Okay.
And at the time, especially in that area, New Jersey and New York, the poke restaurants weren't very popular. No one really knew what they were. So when we were brainstorming something fun to do, we're like, let's do that. Let's have a little play on what is this? It was a big, that was I don't know, maybe a 60-foot mural, all graffiti, and then we had that in the center. As soon as you walk up to like order your food, you see that. So
I just thought that was great. I really appreciated that because, you got to put your own stamp in there, and the person gets to see a little bit more of what the artist is thinking and feeling behind a message like that. So good for you.
For sure.
Now, your jewelry, and mentioning that your wife works with you, and of course, I can't state enough how psyched I am for your boy to be raised in a world where his parents are both working together and happy. I can't tell you how psyched I am for his future. But the jewelry that you all create is sustainably sourced with the intent to build confidence for girls and women. So as a father of a son, I wondered, what was the draw there for you? Because you're specifying
such a great question.
The ladies.
So we created a brand called Every Heart, and our partner, whose name is Tanya, she rode for Team Canada. So she grew up in sport. I grew up in sport. I played baseball in Alabama, and I saw that, especially being down south and just seeing the inequalities throughout my whole entire life of women in sport versus men in sport. So when we started to think, I do a lot of stuff with different charities, but the jewelry, especially with my heart, was going to be very women-based anyway, just because of how the heart base is and all the jewelry that I was creating. So we were thinking about different women's charities, and Tanya being in sport, Kat, and even on the verse side, my wife Cass not being in sport, because it was just looked at like, oh, what are you going to do in sport? Like, there wasn't enough opportunity, to be totally honest. And we said, you know what, well, why don't we fund young girls? So like, mainly right now in Scarborough and in a bunch of different other cities that we're looking at with programs that have girls sports that are maybe inner cities or lack funding, where we've already, in our first month, we've already donated $10,000 to fund 100 different girls to play sports. So we felt like we can have a ground roots.
Bravo, we're getting a clap on that because that is really phenomenal.
We want to have a ground roots impact on girls. And the reason was because I believe that the jewelry, all heart-based, can inspire. And that was the main thing. And sports means a lot to me. Sports means a lot to my partner. And that's how the sports angle came to be.
I love that. And I would not have guessed that. That's phenomenal. I mean, as a man, to notice the inequities in female sports is huge. It's amazing. I actually know Rosie Aday. She is the current Canadian Olympic medalist that still holds, the great record for her meter run. And I don't know whether it was 2 or 4, but I just can't wait for her to hear you say that because people like her are, walking the walk as you are. But for a man to do it, it's very rare. And bravo to you, honestly, big claps there because you are following your heart. You are living your message through your work. And I just cannot be happier to be in your presence because I wondered, though, the shape of the heart is very interesting. So I'd love to know how that came about because I'm drawn to hearts and I'm drawn to constantly promoting love, but I want to know about that shape.
What ended up happening was I was doing more and more murals on a global stage. And at the end of the day, I didn't create the shape of a heart.
Right.
But what I was doing these big murals. Actually, that pokey one, you'll see a lot of hearts in there, but it's not the new shape that I'm working with. What ended up happening was, at the end of the day, there's other artists that do hearts. And I understand that. I didn't create the shape. Right. So I was like, well, as I continue to do bigger murals and on a global stage, I want to have a recognizable heart. And that's what it really came down to be, is I wanted to create my own. And about 3 Valentines ago, I created this sculpture. And that's how it all started, is I wanted to create a sculpture. So I molded this sculpture. And that's just how it was molded off of a dripping heart. And that's how it came to be. So then I took that heart and then just ran with it for everything that I do.
It's so catchy. And as you say, it's so definitively yours. And when I see it, I'm like, that's Ricciardi's. Yeah, I love that. So in general, you talk about inspiring people. You talk about inspiring a generation of others to be aware and mindful of, gender inequalities.
Yeah.
You were in Alabama. I can
Yeah.
only imagine. I'm American. I'm a black woman from New York, but my grandmother was from the South. I can only imagine what you've seen.
I went to a historically black school, so it was.
You went to an HBCU.
It was HBCU.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to say it was an HBCU.
There
so
you go.
Yeah, and I definitely saw that side of the world as well.
So you saw that as well. I love that you had that experience, and I'm sure it informs your work. So how important is art to shaping societal issues?
I think it's very important. And, I don't touch too much on the political side of things with my artwork. I don't try to, it sounds cliche, but I just try to be positive all the time.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of artists, and I know them, and I respect all the different arts and creatives that push the boundaries to get a reaction one way or another. But my goal is to have only a positive one. Mm-hmm. So I think art has the ability to change and help in society by creating imagery for things. There's a famous artist named Shepard Fairey. He did all the imagery for Obama. The famous Obama portrait that was like two different colors was created by that. So you saw the positivity that an artist can create in society. So I think that because artists, musicians, actors have a voice, we should be using it for good. So yes. I think that it definitely shapes society at every level.
That's right.
I know, speaking just from me, is like I just try to do it in a positive way.
No, it really comes across. And so, the fact that they've proven that art can add years to one's life. I mean, obviously you don't dispute that, right? You agree.
100%.
I mean, it's crazy.
The happiness that people feel like one of the biggest joys for me is going into a client's home 6 months, a year after I've installed a painting, and they're like, that painting still brings me joy every day. I'm like, there's nothing greater than that. It's a really, really beautiful feeling.
I love that you say that because, just being drawn to your installation years ago, we're talking 5 years ago at minimum, when I first walked through a mall and like...
In Yorkdale?
Your paintings in Yorkdale spoke to me. And trust me, I love to shop. Everybody out there, ladies, you know how it is. You get a couple hundred in your pocket. Yeah. You're focused on that Gucci store, not an art show. So trust me, the fact that, I was so drawn by the color and the vibrancy and energy coming out of that room, and there were just murals on the wall. Yeah. So I go in and I see all these messages through the work, and I see the colors, and I feel something. And my children are little at the time, and they didn't want to leave.
Yeah,
all of our photos, which I'll show you later, that I still have on my phone, like from 5 years ago, of the little ones just hanging by your beautiful work. So
I am.
It's very special, and so it does make people happy. Okay, it really does, and I love that it inspires.